And here's part 2. But I was one of the very few people that he ever let into his home. And it really was squalid. It was filthy. He didn't have very much at all. He didn't have a television. He used to listen to Radio 3 on the radio. He did have lots of books that had been his parents'. And he was a very clever man, actually. He was someone who had gone to a public school in London, and he was very good at physics and amazing at maths, but he couldn't relate to people. And that's because when I met him, I was able to work out with him, and with doctors. I took him to the doctor on many occasions when he wasn't well, and that he clearly had autism, a type of autism, but when he was a child, nobody knew about that. And he was just a recluse. He didn't ever go out and see people very much at all, and he didn't talk to people until his mother died 21 years ago, and he came into the cafe at St George's Church where I was helping, and I sat and had a cup of tea with him. And from then on, Robert was someone who, if I didn't get to speak to him daily, because he'd come into the cafe and he'd come to church, he started to come to church, and he'd sit next to me often. Then he would phone, and he would also write letters. And he was a very unusual person. And he didn't understand how to feel the normal things that we feel, like love. He had not felt that for anybody. And life to him was a very unhappy experience. And he couldn't bear it as life got more modern. He didn't use the telephone. He didn't have a television. He didn't know anything about what went on in daily lives, unlike the Queen, who had to know so much about everything and everybody around the world, particularly what was going on with our government, with the Prime Minister, and indeed this week, her last engagement was to welcome Liz Truss and ask her to be our new Prime Minister. Now, the Queen's death is being recorded all over the world, and there's so many people speaking so highly about her. Here we go, end of part 2.